Welcome back to the Peruvian Waltz podcast. My name is Jack Black, and I'm joining you here from LA. And for anyone that goes on Twitter, you'll get that reference. I guess Peter can explain it. Which, speaking of, hold on. My volume was freaking turned on. Yeah. Sorry about that. You can edit that out of the uncut pod. Peter, welcome, Peter, joining us from Toronto, Canada. How are you, Peter?
I am doing well, Brian, or I guess in this case, Jack Black. Thank you for having me on the show again.
Yeah, I basically, for those who understand the reference, I went to Cristal versus Melgar the other day, and I took a picture of it, uploaded on Twitter, and some girl with 6,000 followers, a girl with 6,000 followers says, "Oh, look, Jack Black was in the stadium." I'm like, I do not look like Jack Black. I'm sorry. I do not see the parallels with Jack Black. Like, I don't see it.
In that photo, you did a little bit. You look like a relative of Jack Black.
I looked at it, like, I tried to look at it for time, and I still don't see it.
I see it a little bit. She had a bit of a point. A little bit of a point.
She really didn't.
Okay. I died when I saw it. I died. I'm not laughing.
Okay, well, Michelle is also with us. Hello, Michelle, joining us in Sydney. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me once again.
Yeah, no worries. Of course, you're always welcome on this pod. So, yeah, Viz is still not back. So another shout out to Viz. If you're watching this, I have no idea what he's doing. He's probably doing something in the Oval Office. I don't know, some crap like that. Okay. Welcome. Well, we love you, Viz. Okay. So I guess we can start with the Sport Huancayo game versus Caracas. Where do I even begin? Peter, why don't you give your thoughts first? I'll let you, Peter and Michelle, give their thoughts first, and then I'll go over my long thoughts of this match, which is probably going to result in my second rant of this podcast we've ever had. Last one was like 20 episodes ago, so Peter, I'll let you go first.
All right, well, I'm going to save probably most of this for when you rant because I have a feeling we're going to disagree on a few things. But I think this game can be described by the shot total and then the full-time score. So Caracas win 4-3, yet they were outshot 29-9. Like that's not a typo or a misinformation of any kind. They were actually outshot by 20 attempts. Like that is how drastically the gulf was between Huancayo and Caracas, just in terms of the overall attack, who controlled the game, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, Caracas were far more clinical. Huancayo was very wasteful, and obviously coupled with the fact that they gave a disastrous performance in the first leg, both of those things combined led to this. And really, I don't think Huancayo can have many complaints because overall across the two legs, I don't think they were the best team, and they were quite sloppy for at least the opening, I'd say 110, 120 minutes of the tie.
Michelle, why don't you give your thoughts before I go into this, before I go into my rant?
Look, Huancayo looked like a completely different team to what they did last week. Like, they played so much better than they did last week, and I think they did really well for, like, considering they lost 2-0 and they had to win by at least 3 goals. And then they had those 3 goals, and then they just, every time they would score a goal, Caracas would come back and score another goal. So it just kept putting more and more pressure for them. And I think at the end, that pressure just got to them because they were running around and bad passes and just a lot of weird stuff. But, I mean, all in all, I think it was a pretty good game. It was definitely a lot better than last week. It was much more interesting and much more fun to watch. So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, the game was like Jenga, except in Jenga, you could take out pieces of the score, and I would have done that with Caracas. Like, generally, I would have taken out those 4 goals, and Huancayo would have gone through. Enough joking, though. I have a little bit more of a level head now than I did 2 hours ago, which is a good thing for this pod, but yeah, I'm very annoyed by the result because, I mean, leave it to us Peruvians to completely drown out your opponent and still lose somehow literally Caracas crossed the field 3 times for the first 3 goals, and they scored all 3 times. That's what annoys me because I mean, I don't believe in scripts or football gods or anything, so I don't want to I don't want you to take me wrong. Anyone to take me wrong here, but I always think that if when Kyle shot, they shot the Diamardia shot at the start of the second half. That was not going in on the other side. And on their side, they shoot 3 times. They cross the half line 3 times, and they go on all 3 times. It's annoying. Now, the first goal, I can rant about all day because the other 2 goals, I don't even know what I'm ranting about. I'm only talking about the first 3 goals of Caracas because the 4th goal was basically when the game was a scrimmage. So the first goal, the defense did fall asleep. Yes, I can't argue against that, which it is very poor goal to concede. And they left Diamordias open completely, and Pito had a bad night overall. He was not looking confident. He did not make many saves. I mean, he made a few saves, but the game was already over by then, and it was poor. But I also want to mention that Huancayo looked very good in periods of the game, and it looked like they were going to win it. It looked like they were going to go through. But like Michelle said, every time Huancayo would score, Caracas would score again, and it was just horrible luck. I think. I don't usually complain about luck. There's 2 things I don't complain about in football. I don't complain about luck or referees. I think both. Maybe not the referees so much, but luck definitely had an impact in the game because, I mean, they were completely drowned out. All they did was shoot a few times and they'd score. I mean, it was like the Rubinho's days. It was generally that bad, and I think that Huancayo, they did themselves, but I also think that they really should have put their chances away, and which they kind of were a bit unlucky because I don't think Caracas defended particularly well. I mean, they had a few situations where they did a good few interceptions. They weren't countering at all. That Caracas goalkeeper was also one of the worst keepers I've ever seen. I think he had a worse night than Pinto. And somehow he survived the barrage. I mean, you can see it 3 goals, but still, the subs, I think, now on the bright side, on a positive note, I do think the subs were the correct players to take off because I think you took off as long as you didn't take off Neumann, Valverde, Yuya, or no, not that Deza, because Deza did come off and he had a poor night. So I agree with that sub, but everything else about the game which is disgusting because honestly I haven't been I'm more mad now than I was when Melgar lost to Santiago Wanderers because that was more Melgar's own doing, and here I feel like Huancayo had a few bad moments in the match that could have cost them, like that first goal for example. But the other thing, like, you can't rant about them because like you're basically ranting at something that just cannot change. I mean, luck is something that is determined by probabilities. It's not determined by someone's choice. Like if you're gonna play a team against Caracas, you got to notice that they're also gonna try and win it. And while they were looking for the draw, they somehow ended up winning it. So yeah, after the 3rd goal, the thing that made me mad about this match was just the flow of it because after the 2nd goal, they lowered their tempo a little bit. And after the 3rd goal, the game just became a scrimmage because after Caracas' 3rd goal, you'll see Caracas go up a lot more, and that was because they were confident. That was because Huancayo have given up. That was basically it. And the last 3 goals, they were just scrimmage. Like, Ronaldo could have come in the middle of the game. He could have asked, "Hey guys, can I play?" And they would have said yes. That's how much of a scrimmage it was.
Well, okay, so I've got a few things to say on this because I feel like you're kind of all over the map here, which is fair enough because it really was a game that was also all over the map.
Yeah.
I think Noel San Vicente, the Caracas coach, deserves a little bit of credit for how the team attacked. Defensively, yes, I think that they were clearly under siege. When you concede almost 30 shots in a game, then, no other way to say it, you kind of messed up with your defensive scheme. But yes, they only crossed the halfway line a few times, but they had more shots on target than Huancayo. They were more incisive in the final third than Huancayo, and they were more clinical with their finishing than Huancayo. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. So that's the first thing. The second thing, the flow of the game is something that I think Caracas really managed kind of well, because as soon as it looked like Huancayo was getting comfortable, let's say, their midfield would push up more. The defense would be exposed, and then Caracas would expose them that way. I mean, the first goal is a classic case of that, even the second goal too, because Diaz was not closed down either for that sensational second goal, it must be said. So on one hand, while I think that they were maybe architects of their own downfall, Huancayo, then I don't think that you could also say that they were completely undeserved to not win the game, because I think in a lot of ways they were sloppy. And interestingly enough, I wanted to look this up because I figured, okay, well, is Caracas a team that is generally clinical with their finishing throughout not just the Venezuelan league, but even in Copa Sudamericana? And so I looked, and if you look at their expected goals, and to those who don't know what expected goals is, it's an advanced metric used to determine the quality of an individual shot. Caracas's expected goals were 3.72 entering the match. So they're expected to score close to 4 goals. How many goals did they score before tonight? 4 goals. Huancayo, their expected goals were 1.58, and they scored 3 goals in actuality before this game. So one team was clearly better at creating quality chances and finishing those chances, and the other team was not. So I think at the end of the day, it does kind of show you that luck maybe doesn't necessarily have a lot to do with it. I think if you were to look at those numbers, and yes, they are just numbers, but they are a good way of determining whether a team is lucky or unlucky. I think you could probably say that this kind of fell in line with what the numbers say, excuse me.
I think a part of it is just I'm just annoyed at how the game went, but I do think Huancayo did give up after the third goal, which I guess is, I'm not going to be naive, and I guess it's like a normal thing to do. But I mean, at least try to go out with honor. At least, like that's you gotta try something. You gotta try to do that or something like that, which they didn't. And Caracas took advantage. Fair play to them. But I'm still really annoyed at how the flow of the game went. Before I go over to Michelle to see what she agrees with and anything, hello Christopher. He is watching. He didn't specify if he's watching from the Oval Office, but he is watching. And I did start my rant. But I'm tempted to ban you from the chat because you spelled my name wrong. So, all right, Michelle, what do you think of what all we have said?
Yeah, look, I feel like I'm more agreeing with Peter. Just because, like, I'm quite like neutral in this game. Like for me personally, it wasn't like I was rooting for someone specifically, but the defensively, both of these teams weren't like there was no defense on either team. They were just attacking really, and that was the aim of the game, was to just go and get the ball. But for me, there was 2 standout moments. One early on in the game when there was a pass back to the goalie, and then the goalie on Caracas team, he kicks it and it just spins up in the air.
Yes, I remember that.
And then towards the end of the game, when one of the Huancayo players tries to do a skill move by putting his foot over the ball and then gets tackled. And I think for me, that really sums up the game.
Yeah, no, I remember that goalkeeper kick. It was outstanding. And that wasn't the only time he did it in the game. He did it several times. Just a few of the other times were a bit more low-key. And yeah, that Caracas goalkeeper was not good. So
no, he wasn't good. I was like, put me in, coach, I'll play.
All right, so Christopher just confirmed those. He's not in the Oval Office, but he is in Jupiter. So I hope you're there for next pod. like you promised for us one time. So yeah, I hope you're there for next pod if you are back next week. So Peter, let's move on to the next bit. I've said my piece, and we've had our disagreements. Not much else to say, I don't think. So why don't we talk about the Copa Mitad del Mundo? Now, I was when we were planning for this pod, I was going to try and watch 1 or 2 games of this, but I wasn't able to. I just didn't have the time. But I did, however, watch. Not watch. I do know the context of things. Right now, Alianza is into the next round, and they play Atlético Paranaense. They've only lost 1 game so far to Red Bull Brasil, but they've also only won 1 game to Universidad Católica. The other 3 games they drew. So I think Alianza is taking a step in the right direction, because last year they went down the group stages in the Copa Mitad del Mundo, and they were missing a lot of their team. Like Osling Mora was with the national team. I think there was someone else, but I just remember Osling Mora because he was their main man. That's why I discovered Osling Mora actually in that tournament. But Yeah, I do. I have seen some of the player names. I do know who some of them. I will discuss them after. But Michelle and Peter did actually watch the games, so they're gonna save my back here. So, what games did you watch, and who impressed you? What did you think of it, and how was it? I'll let Michelle go first.
I watched the Católica Alianza game, and for me, it's very difficult to be Peruvian on this because I support Católica. Like that's my team. Like I love them, and I hate Alianza. So soz. But it was good. Like Alianza just like ran all over them. They were playing so much better, and they were like their passes were better, their goals were better. But yeah, Católica played well. Like they did what they could, but again, like when anyone is like beating you by a lot, you stress and you start running around, not knowing what to do, and you fail passes and your shots go wide. Your shots go wide and over the top, and they end up flying into space, and so it was hard. But like to see, because they're young kids and they're not professionals, but the way they played was very professional. I was really impressed watching them play. But it was a good goal scoring game. There's a lot of goals scored, which is always fun. Also, a dog went on the pitch, and that was very funny because the commentator said that the Católica has a 12th man on the field. So it was very funny.
All right, Peter. Why don't you give your thoughts? If you saw that dog as well, let's give it a name. Let's give it a name.
Yes, I did watch that game as well. That was a great moment, must be said. But in terms, just to kind of build on what Michelle said, maybe just a couple of players who impressed me for Alianza. One of them, Brian, you actually know, Axel Moyano, the midfielder, who was actually on our website. Brian wrote a scouting report on him. So if you want to know a little more information on Moyano, you can check that out. But another one as well is Mauricio Matsuda, a winger/striker, 18 years old. And he was exceptional in this game. He's a very technically gifted striker, but does like to drift out wide a lot. Perhaps that tactical flexibility can help him break through in the professional game. But much like I think the rest of the Alianza squad, and keep in mind this is an under-18 tournament, there are quite a few players who you could make the case for breaking into the first team, but Pablo Bengoche doesn't seem to be interested in giving those youngsters the minutes. But Matsuda is actually one who could actually make a massive, massive difference in the final third. Him and Kevin Quevedo together, make me salivate at the mouth just thinking about them playing up front with Holberg and well, we won't mention anybody else because that's pretty much all they have. But yeah, it's certainly a very exciting player, one that I hope gets an opportunity very soon because it looks like he could be ready to make that jump into the professional game.
Yeah, but it won't happen with Bengoche around. We all know this. Osling Mora should have got his debut last year, and he was still waiting for him to debut. It's honestly annoying me at this point that it makes me want Alianza to lose every single match so Bengoche can go because I honestly think that he is putting Peruvian football a bit of a halt at the moment because Alianza has all this exceptional young talent in their academy and they're just never going to play because Bengoche is rarely ever going to play them. He does put them on sometimes for the Bolsa Minutos rule, but I mean putting him on 5 minutes in one in every 20 matches isn't developing, and it's not giving them first team minutes. You're giving them 5 minutes in one in every 20 matches. I mean that doesn't count.
Do you think this is like a normal thing that happens in leagues around the world where youngsters aren't actually getting a chance to play because they're getting beaten out by the older team?
Happens a lot, yeah. But I think the Peruvian League has done a better job of it as of late. Every club except Alianza, which is annoying me because Alianza is probably the best academy in the country. Which I know how used to you are, Michelle, because Sydney has that MPL player. I forgot what his name was. That's really good and he's never starting. I forgot what his name was though. I'll have to look it up later. But
George Blackwood.
No, the other one. He is a black player. I'm not saying Blackwood is black. I'm saying he's a black player, but I forgot his name.
Lokoilingoi.
Yes, that's him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know this is a regular occurrence, but the Primera División does have a rule where you have to play a few under 23 players a certain amount of minutes. I think it's under 22 actually, not under 23. But
Yeah.
Alianza is not playing them. I mean, they're playing a few players like Quevedo. Quevedo basically makes all the bolts and uses role because he's made up with the first team. But you have so much other talent when you're struggling, and you're not playing them.
Well,
so,
they're not. They're not struggling anymore. They're
not struggling anymore. But like,
okay, but
it's going to come any second now. I can see them struggling soon again because I don't think their style play has been great, to be honest. But at the same time, in Peru, you can be poor as long as you have quality. You'll do well. So
yeah,
and that's what I need to have, which kind of sucks because Bengochea, I really don't want him in the club anymore. Ceballos has been very patient, and it's working. And Christopher Biscardo is now correcting me. He's saying Afro-Australian is the correct term, buddy.
As an Australian, I've never heard that phrase before.
Oh,
Bro,
you're wrong.
Roasted.
He's not even here. Wow.
Roasted. Okay. Well, anyways, I guess we can move on to the next bit. This Centralizado games. We're gonna make this quick because we're just trying to get back into the groove of it. And I went to 2 games, although one of the games I'm not going to discuss because it's in the current match day. I went to San Martin versus Sport Rosario today. And I actually uploaded my thoughts and my pre-match thoughts and my after-game thoughts. And I decided that it was a very dull game, actually, but I'm not going to talk about that now because I feel it's a bit irrelevant. Actually, no, there is something relevant about that game, and I'll get to that in a second. I also went to Sporting Cristal versus Melgar the other day, and that was a bit of a better game, but still not the best. I thought it was all right. And I thought Cristal were pretty comfortable in that game. And Alianza won 5-1, which kind of sucks because, as I said before, I want Bengochea to go. But let's see what's happening. And Comerciantes Unidos are heading to Abyssinia. And for you Europeans, I'm not talking about Ethiopia.
Oh, Brian, come on, man. Shamelessly plugging your roundup, I see.
Okay, Peter, what are your thoughts on some of these games? And we'll go on to the game today with something we're going to talk about in a second. You might actually segue into it. We're thinking the same at the moment, Peter.
We do. I'll talk about Cristal Melgar first because I think that was one of the more intriguing games of the weekend, certainly. And it's not just because that these had top of the table implications and that these are 2 of the more marquee teams in the country, but I think just the way the game went was really interesting. Sporting Cristal overall were pretty comfortable. They never really left second gear and still were able to win 2-0. Yet Melgar had a lot of chances actually in the final third. They actually outshot Cristal, but only had 4 shots on target, and I think Cristal had 3 and scored off 2 of them.
And they were not only just shots on target, but they were like very weak shots. They just went straight to the keeper.
Right. And, that was kind of the frustrating thing about it because when I was watching Melgar go forward, I'm like, okay, this is good. They're getting there all right. Alexis Arias was dictating the tempo a little bit in midfield. But then once they got there, it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do? And they had very tame shots, it must be said. But to Cristal's credit, I mean, look, again, the same difference makers make the difference. Gabriel Costa, who to me is one of the best playmakers in the country right now. Emmanuel Herrera, who gets 21 goals now in 19 matches. That's just absolutely ridiculous.
That's more than the top goal scoring of last year, which kind of further proves my point that Avila and Bogado were the 2 worst top scorers in Peruvian League history.
Yeah, well, at least compared to Herrera, they are.
Next to Checho Ibarra, who's the top scorer of Peruvian football. He's probably the worst top goal scorer in Peruvian history.
Yeah, definitely. And also a great moment, too, Marcos Lopez, the 18-year-old scoring his first goal, the opening goal, actually.
And he's actually a left back, too. He's actually a left back, and yet he's playing as a left winger, very Tabaresiba-esque again, but it worked this time. So
yeah, it did work, and it kind of gives you a little bit more competition on that wing with Flavio Gomez, obviously doing well before the Apertura took a break. So yeah, it was an intriguing game. I think Cristal definitely deserved to win it. And that top of the table battle is actually looking quite intriguing now.
I did want to say that I don't think it was one of Cristal's better games, but we got to remember this: they just get back to the football after a while, so it wasn't it wasn't the greatest game. And I also tried to get a word to Loyola, but he just passed by me. I'm like, hey, Loyola, hello. And he's like, no, I have to go. So it didn't work out for me with Loyola. But probably one of Melgar's policies. I heard it. I heard they're as strict as the Peruvian national team with talking to press. So it doesn't surprise me much. But anyways, there is one topic I wanted to discuss. And then it's Sport Rosario, who actually won today. But at the same time, they've lost all their best players. And I thought today against San Martin, they looked very, very weak because I thought they looked very limited. But the thing is, they took advantage of a set piece and were able to win the game because of that. But I didn't think they were that good. I don't know if they'll last, but I do think they'll get the job done at home because at home they're a different beast, and they still didn't have a terrible team. They just look a lot more limited. I mean, they still have the same defense line. They have a worse keeper, and they have an okay attacking midfield line. Adam Muriano looks like an okay target man, but not what Echelante was, who oddly signed from Melgar, which I don't get at all because Melgar is a bit top heavy right now. But enough about that. The Sport Rosario are top of the table for today, but you got to remember that they might take off 4 points at Sport Rosario, which means they'll be I think third again. If that counts today. So, Peter, what do you think of Sport Rosario and what you've seen from them? What do you think? Do you think this will last? Do you think they'll be able to get the home wins to Sudamericana again?
I don't know. I mean, it's obviously incredible that they're unbeaten in 6 games with 4 wins in that span. They've been defensively stingy. Like you said, they pretty much kept their entire defense, which I think was crucial. They didn't lose a lot of key players in the spine of that team, and the ones that they did lose have done a decent enough job. You mentioned there Murialdo. Obviously, when Liebman left, that was a big concern, but not really anymore. Christopher Gonzalez as well. But they're kind of patching things up nicely. And we actually got a question in terms of the future of Sport Rosario from Abel Gamarra asking, what does the future hold for Sport Rosario now that all their top players are leaving? Right now, it's looking decent. I mean, you could argue that they could finish in a top 6 spot right now, the way it's going, especially if they can stay defensively stingy. But on the other hand, you kind of wonder what happens if the goals dry up because Murialdo obviously got off to a fantastic start. What if he ends up declining? That is probably the big.
That's very possible. He looked like a very limited target man, if you ask me, when I saw him today.
Yeah.
So I think that's very possible that he's going to start declining a little bit. At home, if he gets the job, they get the job done at home, and they'll be fine. And by the way, just an update: Laú just scored against Binacional. So with 25 minutes left, I usually don't update goals while I do this, but since we're on the topic of this Centralizado, I might as well. So if you listen to the pod later, you already know the result. But if you're watching this live, then they just scored right now. And anyways, back on topic. Sport Rosario are an interesting case because it's weird because last year, every time you think they're going to start losing, they don't. Last year, they lost their best player in La Bandera. They would keep on winning. Now they've lost half their team and they're still winning. I don't know how they do it. It's just odd to me. But I know Christopher's happy and he thinks they'll get Sudamericana, which I honestly think that's what they'll do as well. They get their home results.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. And the last thing is I guess there's not much to say about Laú, but they lost again. I guess we can give Michelle's thoughts on that one since she knows a lot of the context about it.
I'm sad. That's my No, it's just classic, Like how do you expect to improve a team that when you watch them play they don't look like they want to be there? And it's like it's very difficult to be watching a team that just keeps losing and losing and losing. And like, if they keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's like the definition of insanity. Like, try something new, try something different, because otherwise you're just going to get the same results over and over again. And sure, they've scored now, but like, how long will that last before the other team comes back and scores a goal? It really comes down to training, I think, and I think that's what it comes down to, like, for a lot of these teams. Like, you're talking about Sport Rosario, and they're like killing it, right? And sure, they're losing all their players, but their training is probably like incredible, and they're probably training much harder than a bunch of these other teams. So
That's a very good point, actually, because Fernando Navarra has improved Pablo Abraham's work since he's come in, because before they looked a very dysfunctional team, and now they look a lot tactically solid. I thought today they defended excellently, for example. I thought Eric Rossi was magnificent, which I think that's a very key part in Sport Rosario that's going to keep them fighting. I don't think they'll win the title, but I think they'll keep on fighting until they can, at least, until their quality allows it. And that's what I think. And there's another thing I wanted to say. I'm not too happy Laul lost, but it was all worth it for Gideoni's celebration.
Here's something on Laul that I think really intrigues me. Before the season started, a lot of fans were calling for the youth to be introduced, right? More chances for Ciucho, more chances for players from the Cantera to be pushed into the first team and to get consistent minutes. Obviously, because of the transfer ban, Pedro Trollio was forced to do this, but he did it. And I think really the only negative to playing youth players is you're going to have peaks and valleys, right? I've mentioned this on the show several times. Anthony Osorio scores the goal today against Binacional, which is fantastic. But on the weekend, he was completely isolated. And you can say that, okay, it's down to the altitude. They're learning a new system under a new coach, Nicolas Cordova. They're trying to play this 4-3-3 system where for some reason Angel Romero was playing as an attacking midfielder. It didn't make any sense to me. But nonetheless, and he had 4 or 5 players, under 20 players in the lineup, but the vast majority of them were quite poor. Nunez being chief among them. But you can't be too hard on them because, again, they're coming into a really difficult situation. They're battling relegation. They got all this pressure on them. They're basically expected to hit the ground running right away. The new coach comes in. He knows he has pressure. It really is a very tough situation to have. Plus, you've got the whole dispute with the licensing committee of the FPF. Yep. It's a whole mess. It's good to see them winning at home, at least for the fans' sake. But I think one of the real problems is how many times can you bring in a new coach, especially with a young squad, have them learn yet another system that they have to get used to and comfortable in until it just kind of blows up in your face and you are then, either relegated or you're in some sort of dire strait. Because certainly that's been affecting this team for years and years and years. They've obviously had a long-standing coaching carousel where one coach goes out after a few months, one comes in, and you restart the cycle. And it's just it's hurting the team, but it especially hurts this what should be a very exciting crop of young players as well.
Yeah, and I think we've said it all now. I think we said it all now. Yeah, can we move on to questions now, Peter? Because we got quite a lot of them. We already answered one.
We did, yeah. And actually, one of them is on Universitario from Robbie C. at BNCEO asked, if Laú are relegated and continue to have debt, will a rich owner save them, or will some teams loan them money to stay afloat?
No. We've already seen something like that almost happen with Chivas' manager, but then he saw debt and he's like, no, I'm not paying this. And then he just went away. So it's I highly doubt it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think the best thing that could happen to them is the licensing committee, the FPF, or the administrators to take over the team and manage their finances, try to balance the books a little bit, and just stabilize that team. Because what Gremco has done and what previous owners have done, I mean, dating back to 1986, the unpaid debts, not paying employees, running these clubs like a mafia just for money laundering, it's gone on far too long. Laú isn't the only team to deal with it, but because they are the most successful, one of the biggest clubs, and traditionally one of the big three, you're going to focus on them the most, especially because they have the largest debt out of any other team.
Yep. And what's the next question, Peter? Because we're going to try and get one answer from each, I think.
Okay, so I guess this kind of strolls into Peruvians abroad because the first two questions were Descentralizado related on Rosario and Laú. So we'll go again to Robbie, who asked, has Mexico become a destination for Peruvians abroad? Why no more in Germany when Pizarro, Farfán, Guerrero, and Zambrano were there? And I think really the simple answer for the second one is right now there really isn't that generational type talent coming through in Peru at the moment. Pizarro, we all knew how good he was when he was younger. Farfán was a revelation. So was Paolo Guerrero. Zambrano, hit and miss, I guess you could say at best. But those players, and you can throw in Juan Manuel Vargas in there as well. Those were really like
on his prime, mate.
Yeah, like those are once in a generation type players. So obviously those teams like Bayern Munich and whatnot are going to identify them early, see the potential, and think, okay, we got to sign this kid. They actually just signed Alphonso Davies, the exciting 17-year-old Canadian kid, for a deal that could be worth up to $20 million. So there's a perfect example, right? You have what is deemed a generational talent being spotted by these big clubs, whereas you're not seeing that right now in Peruvian football. So I think that's kind of the trickle-down effect. And then in terms of Mexico, I would also say MLS is a destination, and there are a few reasons for that because of the financial guarantees, the standard of living.
The marketing.
Certainly in certain areas, the marketing. You can speak Spanish in certain areas like in Florida or Texas, California. And then same thing goes with Mexico as well. Those all factor into their decisions. But it's also a good step up from the descentralizado to go to one of those leagues as like another stepping stone to see how you fare against stronger competition in a more difficult environment, let's say.
All right, Michelle, what do you think of this topic? I'm going to pass on this topic because I think Peter said all my thoughts, basically.
I mean, I'd also say that, like, people want to play in front of an audience. You want to play in front of crowds, and the MLS has big crowds. Even in Mexico, they have bigger crowds than what they do in Peru. So, I think part of it is wanting to play where they know that there's going to be like an actual audience and like an active support zone that's going to be there, every week, and that they know that there's going to be numbers at these games and that the stadiums are going to be packed. So I think that's part of it, but it's definitely something to do with like standard of living as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
All right, next question, Peter.
Sure. So we'll close out the questions for today by moving over to Abel Gamarra at Abelanda81. And he asked, what is Alexander Sukar's status in Switzerland? Transfer market has him as a Sporting Cristal player since his loan ended in June, apparently. So there was actually just an update released today on Sukar's status because he was seen in Lima going to a concert with Andre Carrillo, actually. So people are kind of wondering, well, is he supposed to be in preseason? Is he back in Peru because his loan ended? So he has actually a contract until June 2019 with Sion in Switzerland. And the reason he is back home in Peru is because he actually just underwent 2 heel surgeries and had to miss the preseason as well as the opening stage of the Swiss Super League. In fact, Sion didn't register him for the first half of the season because of those surgeries and the recovery it'll take. But according to Sukar's agent, they are still very high on him. They're hoping that he can come back and make an impact. He actually did decently towards the end of the season, helped Sion stay up and avoid relegation. But you could see that when he was playing, again, only the odd 5-10 minutes, which kind of goes back to our conversation from before. And with Alianza Lima and the fact that they only play youngsters a certain amount of time in segments, Sukar struggled with that, clearly, because when he came on, he looked rusty. So you hope that when he recovers from this injury, he gets into the Sion team or at least gets regular minutes, consistent minutes to make an impact, because more than anything, I think he needs to play, especially because he's kind of seen as one of the potential Paolo replacements for the national team.
Yeah, and I guess I could segue. That was the last question, right, Peter?
It was, yeah.
Okay, I guess I could segue into this with this case, into the Peruvians abroad, because we're seeing something very similar with Luis Advíncula, and this will segue us into the Peruvians abroad, because I said on Twitter and I sent in the Peruvian Waltz podcast group, what is going on with Luis Advíncula? I mean, he's not a Lobos, he's not a Tigres, he's not a free agent. But I did get a reply from a Mexican when I said that on Twitter. He is a Tigres, but he's not deemed good enough. Who knows why? But he's not deemed good enough. He's not registered. Well, I don't know if he's registered, but he's not in the first team at least. And they're trying to figure out what to do with him, basically. So I thought he had a good World Cup, personally.
Oh yeah.
I don't get why he had a very good World Cup. It was one of the standouts. Michelle, I'll let you go first. What do you think? What do you think Tigres are thinking when they're not good? When you say he's not good enough, or I guess it's kind of a sloppy question, but why do you think Tigres want to play him? Do you think maybe they think they're ill-disciplined? This is kind of like a theory in a way.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it for me, it's always weird when a team gets a player that's world class, that's really good, and then they don't play them. I've seen this happen so many times. This happens at here in Australia all the time, and it happens in England all the time. So it could just be that there's personnel problems, that there's like problems going on within the club itself, and that he's having issues with the training staff or something, that they're not coming out about, or it could just be they just think that he's not good enough, even though he played really well at the World Cup, but maybe he's just not doing as great for his club.
In training in particular, I think training is very important. That under the radar, people don't realize how important it is because we can't see it. So, Peter, what do you think?
So I actually spoke to Mexican reporters about this because it was doing my head in why he wouldn't come back. Now, the reason why he actually left on loan in the first place is he got injured at the beginning, or I guess in the 2017 Clausura, and Luis Rodriguez replaced him. Now, Luis Rodriguez in Tuca Ferretti's system actually fits it more because he's a little more defensive-minded than Advíncula. Not that Advíncula can't defend, but he prefers his right back to stay at home more so than get forward, because Jorge Torres Nilo does that on the left side. So that's part of the reason why he didn't play, plus the injury didn't really help him, because he was actually starting regularly before he ended up picking up that knock. And then the reason why he isn't back is just that exact same reason. He just doesn't – he's deemed surplus to requirements as he does not have a spot in the first team. Now, he has been linked to America on loan. Miguel Herrera actually wants him for the upcoming season. That would actually be up until next spring because, of course, it goes for the entire season. So he'd play for the Apertura Clausura in 2019 as well. But he's also got interest in Spain, in Russia. There was apparently interest as well. I believe it was in Argentina too. So he definitely has a lot of suitors. And I think one of the reasons why he is sitting out is he wasn't registered for the Apertura and has no reason really to play. He's actually been training with Sporting Cristal just to keep fit. And this is also a reason why Edison Flores is not training with Aalborg, because he's also waiting for a move. He has interest from La Liga as well, and he's actually confirmed that. I believe it was on Al Ángulo. They asked him about that, and he said, yes, I do have interest from Spain. So that's the situation. It's not ideal, but as long as he ends up somewhere where he's going to play, then at the end of the day, that is what matters.
All right. I have no thoughts on this, but I want a little bit more thoughts. I've kind of just been the host here. I want a little bit more thoughts in the next bit, but I'll let Peter take the host mic because Peter's the proven broad guy. We have debated on this, and I want Peter to decide what we talk about next.
Sure. So another rumor that's actually really hot right now is Paulo Hurtado is going to be leaving Vitória de Guimarães for the Seattle Sounders, where Raul Ruidíaz just debuted over the weekend against Jordi Reyna's Vancouver Whitecaps. And they were looking for another attacking signing. As everybody knows, Hurtado can play as a number 10 on the right wing. So Seattle's interested in bringing him in to fill either of those roles. Of course, they have Nico Lodeiro there as well. But again, the tactical flexibility is key. So a lot of people are questioning why he would move. And it is a little bit curious because he was a key player for Vitória de Guimarães. Obviously, he's in Europe. He's doing well in Portugal. Why would he leave? Well, the big reason is he has clashed with the supporters. He is 27, going to be 28 years old, I believe, on Friday.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
So Vitória kind of sees this opportunity to cash in because they stand to make a €1 million profit, which for a team the size of Vitória de Guimarães is massive. And they just sold Rafinha to Sporting, I believe, as well, one of their bright young players for a few million euros. So they kind of want to make cash as quickly as they can. And they figured that, okay, even if we sell Hurtado, who's a key player, that's big. And the only team to make an offer is the Seattle Sounders. So if the club wants to sell him, if they think that he's going to be a bit of an issue, at least with the fans, then I don't think he has much choice then to go to Seattle. But at least he's going to be familiar with the Spanish contingent that's there. They got Victor Rodriguez, who's Spanish, Lodeiro, obviously Uruguayan, and then his countryman Ruidíaz as well. I think it could be a good situation for him, really.
I agree that I've seen a lot of complaints about about him going to the MLS, but I actually think it's a good move because, like you mentioned, he's 27. He's going to turn 28. I mean, yeah, I've never thought he was going to end up at a big club. I didn't expect him to go to Benfica or anything. And I think the Reading thing is a little bit too late now, to be honest. So you might as well go back. I mean, I have similar thoughts on Cristian Ramos actually, which we talked about on the last part about Carrillo and Al Hilal, but I'll go on to Ramos in a second. I do think that the MLS is better than the I almost said the A League. What is better than the A League? I'm sorry, Michelle, but
No.
it's also better in the Saudi League. That's what I meant to say. And I think that the Seattle is a good move for them because it will make them contenders again for sure. And he's a goal scorer. That's the type of player he is. He is a goal scoring player, and I think that at Seattle he'll get lots of them. He already gets out a lot of them in Portugal. Not a small team. Vitória Guimarães are not a small team, but they're a weak team. They're a weak team for sure. And he does well there. He's a star player, and I think he will give the star as well in Seattle. So it will be. I'm not against this move. Now, as for Ramos, I'll segue into the next bit. Ramos moved to Al Nassr. I'll let Michelle have her thoughts here first. Because what's called Ramos. I was against Carrillo moving, but I'm not against Ramos moving because Ramos was not the star of the World Cup for Peru, and he's not a millionaire. So if you're gonna be off for that money with the money you have right now, you're gonna go for it. And Carrillo, on the other hand, was making good money and was the star of the World Cup. So I do feel a need to critique him. But Ramos, I can't complain because I mean it's his career choice. He wants to make money, and that's totally fine. It's not like he was a millionaire anyway. So I think that's fine with him. Michelle, what do you think of this move?
I just think it's Saudi Arabia to me is one of those countries. It's not a footballing country, and so for me, it's just like it's a weird move. But they have lots of money there. You know, the Asian countries have a lot of money, and they can bring in people. They try bringing in big names, but they don't because it's the quality of football isn't top. And that's why big names don't tend to go out there. But yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. You know, if you're not making a lot of money and you want some money, then, it's a good move. But it does then say you're just chasing the money. And I think that's something that a lot of fans of football don't like as much. I know for me, it's like I'd rather watch someone play in a good league with good football rather than getting a lot of money. But again, I'm just the fan and I'm not the one with the money, and I'm not the one who has to work hard for it. So yeah, it's just, for me, it's just weird. It's just weird, but whatever. Good for him.
Similar ending to mine. All right, Peter, what are your thoughts on Ramos? Do you agree with what me and Michelle are saying?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that this was the right move for him at 29. He has a young family. If he can make significantly more money, go for it. And I think one of the things that fans seem to forget is that not all footballers live and breathe the sport. They see it as a job, right? And when you have a young family, you need to provide for that family. And when your career is so short and when it can end at a moment's notice with a serious injury or whatever happens to be the case, you have to maximize your earning potential. Why do we fight for promotions at our jobs? To make more money for the most part, to get financial security and job security. But when professional athletes do it, they're deemed as mercenaries, which I think is completely unfair. So I don't at all blame Carrillo for doing it, even though it's only a loan. So let's be honest, at this point, it's only temporary. I don't at all blame Ramos for doing it because he's in his prime right now, and this is his chance to get one last payday. So if he can stand to make a bit of money, retire comfortably, provide for his family and their children in the future, then so be it. Good on him.
Well, I, for one, do blame Carrillo for it because I think he's making a lot of money already. So, I mean, if you're in Europe and you're already a millionaire, what's the point of moving? Ramos is an exception.
Because he has to play. That's why. That was the only real significant offer that he got, right?
Well, so, we will see how it goes in the next year, and then we'll come back to this. So, Peter, I'll pass the host mic again to you. Why don't we go over one more Peruvian? I guess we can leave Alejandro Duarte to a side for now, and we talk about one more Peruvian. So, which one do you think is the most important for now?
Well, I think in terms of, I really want to say Raul Ruiz because he debuted, but he really only had one significant chance. The game was already won for Seattle, so he didn't really. You can't really take too much out of it. Although
why don't we talk about Miguel Trauco actually? Because I don't think there's anyone that's more important than him right now. Because there is, I mean, he's getting offers like Flores, but at the same time, Flores was getting game time, and Trauco has just been frozen out. It wasn't only Carpegiani, although the philosophies of that club have been really weird. So
well, they're top of the table, so I guess it's working, right?
It's working, but I hate it. I hate it. I never really wanted to do well, but in this instance, I hate it. Go Atletico Mineiro. That's my Brazilian club. All right.
Yeah,
so
I mean, Trauco is a weird situation because he actually came on as a substitute a week ago. So, at least they're starting to play him. But both sides have admitted that they want to part ways. Bordeaux's been linked. I believe Club America was linked just before the World Cup. Marseille as well. I mean, a lot of clubs are in for Trauco apparently, which is great. But again, they're just they're just rumors at this point, right? So until there's something concrete, because I'm sure Flamengo would sell the moment a concrete offer comes in, he's stuck there, unfortunately, and there's nothing really that he can do except for continuing to train and hope that one of these teams eventually signs him. There could be a breakthrough on the Bordeaux point because they have just sold Malcolm to Barcelona. That frees up a non-European Union spot, so a non-EU passport holder. And that's apparently what they were waiting for before offering Flamengo a bid. So perhaps we might see some movement on that front in the next few days.
I do have one question for Michelle, and then I'll end the pod. Michelle, so what do you think is better for Trauco? Do you think it's better for him to go to Bordeaux, a team that I don't want to say struggles in Ligue 1, but it's not the same that they were before?
They made the Europa League, Brian.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying no, but I'm talking about before they were champions. When they were champions, I'm comparing it to back then. Yeah. So, do you prefer them to play for a team that's not the same as before and is completely dominated the league with money, like PSG and Monaco, or do you prefer them to play for a giant like Club America and get more notice, doing better in a decent league and get more notice? Because I mean, let's be fair, more people are gonna see you at Bordeaux, but big clubs, if they see you tearing it up at a big team like Club America without support, then that's another thing that it's like a whole conflict thing, if you know what I mean.
I mean, look, I play on the weekends, right? So, and I want to play as much as possible when I play. So I think whatever is going to get you the most playing time is going to be your best move. More playing time means your stats get better. You score more goals, you get more money. You want more playing time essentially. But if you play for a big club, there's a good chance that you won't be playing. You'll be on the bench. And then you'll be out on loan. So
I'll take that as a Bordeaux then. So yeah.
It's probably a better choice, honestly.
Yeah. All right. So that will end the pod for today. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Brian Birdie, and I'm signing off. My Twitter handle is B_Bird98. Michelle, what is yours?
Michelle A. Morris.
All right. And Peter, how about you? And as well as the Peru_Waltz Twitter account?
Brian will be incorrect with that. The Twitter account can be followed at Peru Waltz, no underscore. And I can be followed at Galindo PW. And again, don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube for all that good quality hashtag content.
All right. So thank you for listening, and good night.